On August 10th, 955, the Battle of Lechfeld was fought, marking a pivotal clash between the forces of Otto I, Holy Roman Emperor, and the invading Magyars. This confrontation sought to end a nearly 50-year period of Magyar incursions into the western territories of Europe. The Magyars, fierce horsemen feared across Europe, had been a significant threat for decades, raiding deep into Germanic lands and disrupting local societies. Their reputation for swift and brutal tactics was well known, making Otto's determination to confront them all the more crucial. Otto I, recognizing the need to protect his empire and consolidate power, prepared for battle. He rallied his troops, emphasizing the importance of unity and strength against the common enemy that had plagued the region for too long. The day before the battle, scouts reported the location of the Magyar forces, allowing Otto to devise a strategic plan to use the terrain to his advantage. The planning sessions buzzed with tension and urgency. As dawn broke on the battle day, both armies prepared themselves. The Magyar leader, confident but aware of the stakes, urged his men to uphold their fierce reputation, promising glory in battle. The mixed chorus of war cries and clanking metal resonated across the field as Otto's forces took their positions, lining up in a crescent shape to intercept the Magyars head-on. As the battle commenced, the charging Magyar cavalry collided with the German infantry. The clamor of hooves and metal echoed, marking the fierce struggle for supremacy. Otto stood firm amongst the chaos, giving orders and leading by example. His presence galvanized his troops, who fought valiantly to defend their homeland against the relentless Magyars. The combat escalated, and although the Magyars initially gained ground with their cavalry speed, the resilient German infantry began to fold their line, countering the assaults. As the day unfolded, Otto's strategy began to take effect. The German forces coordinated attacks that started to unravel the Magyar offensive, showcasing the effectiveness of their superior tactics and organization. Realizing the tide was turning, the Magyar leader commanded a heavy charge, seeking to break the German lines, but soon found himself met with relentless resistance. Dusk approached, and after hours of hard fighting, the momentum shifted fully in favor of Otto's forces, as their disciplined formations held firm against Magyar assaults. With a strong counterattack, Otto's forces surged forward, breaking through the Magyar defenses. The battle turned into a desperate retreat for the Magyar warriors, who had once seemed invincible. By nightfall, the battle had concluded, marking a decisive victory for Otto I and his troops. The Magyars, once a formidable force in Europe, were now in full retreat, facing an end to their invasions. The defeat at Lechfeld would change the fate of the Magyars and Europe itself, marking the end of their westward expansion and beginning a new era of stability and unity under Otto's rule. As the sun rose higher, the sound of clashing swords and the cries of warriors echoed across the battlefield, setting a grim stage for the clash between two determined forces. Otto surveyed the battlefield, his piercing blue eyes narrowing as he calculated the movement of the Magyar forces, readying his men for the next phase of engagement. The Magyar leader watched intently, raising his sword to motivate his men, a rallying cry echoing through the ranks, stirring fervor among his warriors. The initial clash erupted as both forces collided, the thunderous sound of hooves and shouts creating an atmosphere of chaos at the Battle of Lechfeld. Both armies fought bravely, yet the Magyars initially pressed hard, pushing the German lines back with their relentless cavalry charges. Otto, witnessing the initial setbacks, shouted commands, inspiring his troops to hold their ground, offering strategic guidance amidst the turmoil. As the skirmishes continued, Otto's battlefield tactics began to emerge as a contrast to the chaos of the skirmishes, carefully designed to counter the Magyars' aggressive onslaught. Otto deployed a series of counterattacks, his forces moving with renewed vigor, catching the Magyars off guard and beginning to shift the momentum of battle. As day turned to dusk, the Magyars found themselves increasingly on the defensive, their cavalry unable to break through Otto's retrenched positions. Fighting valiantly, Otto's forces managed to encircle a section of the Magyar troops, effectively cutting off their retreat and forcing a pivotal decision. With the encirclement tightening, the Magyar leader quickly realized the precarious position his forces were in, seeking a means of escape. In a bold decision, the Magyar leader rallied his remaining cavalry for one last desperate charge, hoping to break free from their predicament. The charged clash produced a flurry of movement, with both sides now fully immersed in the chaos, each fighting for their survival and the outcome of the battle hanging in the balance. Otto, witnessing the desperate charge, felt a surge of resolve, commanding his forces to hold strong against the Magyars' final push. Despite the courage displayed by the Magyars in their last charge, Otto's forces held their ground, executing a well-prepared defense that turned the tide of the battle. Gradually, the pressure exerted by the Magyars began to falter as fatigue and disarray crept into their edges, leading them to waver under Otto's relentless assault. The turning tide became evident as the German forces began to break through the Magyar ranks, capturing their numbers and resolving the fierce confrontation. Realizing defeat was imminent, the Magyar leader commanded a retreat, hoping to preserve what remained of his forces amidst the chaos. The retreat turned into a rout as the German troops pursued fiercely, marking the retreating Magyars' flight from the battlefield, showcasing the futility of their efforts. As the last rays of sunlight vanished, Otto surveyed the remnants of the battlefield, profoundly aware of the monumental victory he had achieved that day. As dawn broke over Lechfeld, Otto I stood resolute, observing the vast battlefield before him. His soldiers, clad in shining armor and ready for the fight, prayed for victory. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as an epic confrontation loomed on the horizon. A Magyar leader, rallying his fierce warriors, bellowed words of encouragement while the sun glimmered off their leather armors. His men watched, eyes gleaming with a mix of anticipation and loyalty, ready to charge into battle, reflecting their culture's fierce pride. As the battle commenced, the clash of swords and shields rang through the air. Otto's forces met the fierce Magyar cavalry with resolute courage. Soldiers on both sides shouted, the sound creating an overwhelming cacophony of war cries, adding to the chaos of the battlefield. Amidst the chaos, Otto shouted orders, guiding his men to form a defensive line. His piercing blue eyes scanned the field, calculating the movements of the enemy, while around him, soldiers echoed his commands, determined to hold back the fierce onslaught. The ferocious Magyars pressed on, their cavalry relentlessly charging against the German infantry. However, Otto's defensive tactics and the disciplined formation of his troops slowly began to shift the battle's tide in favor of the German forces. As the sun rose higher, Otto's forces mounted a coordinated counteroffensive. With swift precision, they began to push back the Magyar troops, creating openings for breakthrough maneuvers, while the sounds of battle echoed loudly in their ears. As dusk approached, Otto's brilliant tactics became evident. His army surrounded a contingent of Magyar soldiers, cutting off any path of retreat, while the relentless sounds of battle melded into a desperate chaos of shouts and clanging metal. The Magyar leader, recognizing the dire situation, rallied his remaining warriors for a final desperate charge, a last attempt to break free from the encirclement, while Otto stood firm, commanding his guys with unwavering resolve. Otto's forces executed a well-prepared defense. As the fearless Magyar charge met the steadfast German lines, Otto's strategic planning shone through, leading to a moment where defense turned into a punishing counterattack. The chaotic retreat of the Magyars began, with Otto's troops pressing advantage and forming ranks to consolidate control over the battlefield. Each step forward was a step towards victory, instilling fear in their fleeing foes. By sunset, the remnants of the Magyar forces were scattered, and Otto surveyed the battlefield, an overwhelming sense of achievement and relief washing over him as the weight of the victory settled in. With the sounds of victory still ringing in the air, Otto turned to his loyal soldiers, praising their bravery and resolve. His leadership had forged a united front, a crucial turning point against the relentless Magyar invasions. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, Otto reflected on the significance of the battle. The defeat of the Magyars marked an end to decades of turmoil, peace beginning to settle over his realm. As news of the victory spread, towns celebrated and the people rejoiced in the promise of security. Otto's name became synonymous with valor and protection, a savior who halted the horde's advance. The victory at Lechfeld reverberated throughout Europe, altering the trajectory of power dynamics and western borders. Otto I emerged as a leader of unparalleled stature, inspiring subsequent generations. Scholars in the Holy Roman Empire began to document the battle's significance, writing about the tenets of leadership fouled in wartime and the virtues that Otto exemplified during the conflict. The Magyars, now on the defensive, retreated into their territories, facing challenges in the wake of their defeat. The repercussions of the battle forced changes in their strategies and alliances. Otto's decisive action during the battle transformed him into a hero, multiple kingdoms looking to him for leadership and shaping the image of what it meant to be a ruler in turbulent times. In the long term, the Battle of Lechfeld symbolized not only a military victory, but also the resilience of a unified Europe. It represented a communal determination to stand against external threats. Ultimately, the Battle of Lechfeld laid the foundation for the Holy Roman Empire's strength in Europe. Otto I's legacy and the outcomes of this encounter would echo through history, inspiring future conflicts and unity.